Chapter 16 Bloody New Year's Ball. Dean Family Farm, just outside of Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia Colony, 2:43 a.m. New Year's Day, Sunday, January 1st, 1730. With Martha across his lap and JJ's cold saddle beneath him, William rides on point about 35 yards ahead of BB and the ladies in the wagon. With the full moon, it is easy to see down the sloshy cart path dividing the pristinely white snow to its left and right. Nevertheless, William's eyes are wide, peering ahead and side to side as he slow walks JJ towards home. They have covered half of their 2.5-mile journey when he brings JJ to an abrupt halt. Eyes front and focused, he throws a fist in the air, signaling BB to stop. As BB slows the mules, William pauses, scanning the area, then quickly rides back to the wagon. The tipsy Scotsman asks, "What's the hold-up?" "There's something in the snow up yonder, and an abandoned paint in the snowfield." Taking in a deep breath, BB straightens, quickly sobering. "Wife, hand me the musket." Alertly, Berta hands it to him. "What is it, BB?" "I dinna ken. Climb up here and take the reins. And keep your eyes open." Berta climbs to the front of the wagon and takes the reins. Meanwhile, BB is on the ground and hurrying to retrieve his horse. From the rear of the wagon he shouts, "Flora, that means you too, lass. Keep an eye out behind the wagon, and if you sees anything at all, holler, loud as you can. Understand?" "Aye, da," she bravely replies. "And Berta, be ready to use the other musket." "For what?" she gasps. "Just be ready." "Don't worry, da, we'll be ready." He gives Flora a thumbs up as he mounts and follows William down the shadowy moonlit road. "What did you see, lad?" "I dinna ken. About 50 yards ahead there's something in the snow to the right of the road." "And?" "And the tingling feeling in the back of me head is telling me something's amiss. So stay sharp." BB nods. Cautiously, William leads them to the spot. On high alert, they approach the dark mass in the snow, scanning the area like soldiers as they do, eyes open and weapons at the ready. There is no movement, only the occasional step and nervous bray from the paint standing nearby. When they get within 20 feet of the dark mass, William makes out what appear to be a pair of British Army boots and leggings. "It's a man," he says in his hunting voice, sliding from JJ's back. Questions fill William's head. What is a soldier doing out here alone? His thoughts sounding strangely familiar. As the shadowy scene comes into focus, William observes blotches of blood leading up to and around the body. Whoever he is cloaked in a thick wool robe, face down in the snow. William whispers, "He appears to be wounded." "What in blazes?" BB replies, quickly turning his eyes up to scan for threats. William approaches. There is no movement as he kneels beside the body. Carefully and guardedly, he rolls it on its side and is greeted by a soft groan. William breathes, "Lord Almighty!" "My God, he's just a teenage boy," BB extols. "Aye." BB leans in closer. "Is he alive?" Placing a hand on the teen's chest, William sighs. "Barely. And not for long if we don't get him back to dock. BB, fetch the wagon." "Hold fast, lad. I'll be right back," he says as he hastily mounts his horse and races back to the wagon. Examining the patient, William recognizes the ornate turban on the teen's head. He is one of the Shawnee warriors he encountered his first morning in the Shenandoah. Placing an ear near the teen's mouth, he checks his breathing, shallow but steady. Inspecting for wounds, he attempts to communicate in Algonquin, although for the sake of putting the boy at ease, what he says is only half true, as his only contact with the Shawnee had been at knife point. Giving him a gentle shake, he whispers, "I am William, friend of Skiagunsta. I'm here to help." He says it repeatedly as he assesses the situation. He knows hostiles frequent the area. Skiagunsta had told him about their war with the Haudenosaunee, and he wonders if this has anything to do with that. I am William, friend of Skiagunsta. Can you hear me? I'm here to help. Slowly cracking his eyes, the teen mutters, Skiagunsta. William's face lights up, eyes wide. Aye, Skiagunsta, he's me friend. The boy fades in and out of consciousness. He is badly wounded and has clearly lost a lot of blood. What happened? Who did this? The teen is struggling to remain conscious. With the last of his strength, he breathes but one word before passing out. Haudenosaunee. Just then, Beebe arrives with the wagon. He slides from his mount and stands silently beside his horse, awaiting further instructions. William stands and turns to him. We need to get him into the wagon. Beebe turns to the wagon and starts barking orders. Berta, bring the wagon closer. Flora, come give us a hand. Quickly, child. Flora jumps from the wagon and runs over to help. While Berta moves the wagon closer, William puts his plan into motion. From what I can tell, he's been shot in the right shoulder, but that's the only wound I can see in this light. I think we'd be best to load him in face down. I don't want to jostle his wound any more than we have to. Beebe, take the other side of him. Flora, grab his feet. On 3. 1, 2, and with that they heave the wounded teen into the wagon. Flora starts to remove the blanket she is wrapped in, but William stops her. Removing his bearskin, he hands it to her. Here, cover him with this. Smiling warmly, she takes it from him. I will. Thank you. William nods, and as he turns to pull away, she adds, You're a good man, William Bruce. He smiles at her, then turns to her mother. Miss Berta, pull the wagon about. We need to get him back to the Deans and Doc McCaney. Oh, my Lord have mercy. Okay, lad, coming about. Meanwhile, William takes the hatchet from his belt and removes a sizable branch from a large shrub. Dragging it back and forth over the snowy ground, he covers any signs of how many they are or what direction they are traveling, and if he is lucky, all evidence of the incident. He sweeps it over the tracks and footprints several times, then tosses it aside. Remembering the loyal paint, he guides it to the back of the wagon and ties it off, assuming it belongs to the wounded warrior. Mounting JJ, he says, Beebe, I'll take point. You guard the rear. And be ready. We don't know what all we're dealing with. Beebe gives him a 2-fingered salute, and as fast as they are able, they make their way back to the Deans. When they arrive, there is not a soul in sight. The barnyard is dark, cold, still, and quiet, with only the wind blowing through the trees that surround the property. William rides straight to the cabin, slides off JJ, and dashes to the porch. He pounds on the front door a few times, then takes it upon himself to enter. There was a soft glow from the fireplace. To the shock of all who were sleeping, he shouts, Doc McCaney! Where are you? Doc McCaney! Mr. Dean, recognizing William's voice, quickly appears from the back room in his undergarments. I thought it were you. What's the ruckus? Where's Doc? Fumbling to light a candle, Jeffrey asks, Why, lad? What happened? Is somebody sick or injured? We found a boy on the side of the road. He's been shot. He needs Doc's help. God almighty. So, the last time I saw Doc, he were in the barn sleeping it off by the furnace. William blasts out the door. Berta is pulling up in the wagon when she spots William dashing towards the barn. They make eye contact and he points. To the barn! Opening the barn door, he shouts, Doc! Startled, Doc jumps from the rocking chair. Disoriented, he struggles to regain his senses, blurting, Who said I was drunk? Crashing his hands to his temple, he moans, Oh, me aching head. William shouts, Doc, we need you! Doc turns and glares at him. What is it? There's a wounded boy. Regaining his wits, Doc asks, A boy? Where? From the door, William shouts, In our wagon! Doc pulls down on the lapel of his winter coat. Bring me to him. Peering into the wagon, he sees the teenager lying face down in the wagon, covered with William's bearskin, and he barks, "Help me get him inside!" Beebe rides up and hurries over to help William and Jeffrey carry the teen into the barn. "Quickly, lads," Doc says, leading them inside. He rushes over and clears a party table. "Place him here." As they rest the large teen on the table, Jeffrey and Doc light lanterns. As the scene comes into view, Jeffrey gasps, "Why, he's a bloody savage!" Ignoring his outburst, Doc commands, "Jeffrey, I'll need some clean cloths, anything to clean his wounds, and some hot water. Oh, and some whiskey." "Whiskey? Have you no had enough?" Jeffrey scoffs. "'Tis no for me, you daft idiot. For him." With a silent gasp, Jeffrey abruptly straightens. Healing to the insult, he stands stone-faced and silent. Doc looks up from the wound and barks, "Move your arse!" Jeffrey scurries to the beverage table and grabs a jug. He whisks it over to Doc, then hurries to the cabin to retrieve the other items. Doc pops the cork from the jug and takes a swig, grumbling, "Enough me arse." Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Jeffrey enters and Margaret gasps, "What happened?" "We need some boiled water and something to clean a wound," he billows as he desperately searches the cabin. "Margaret, have you anything Doc can use?" Throwing some logs onto the already burning fire, she asks, "Wounds? Whose wounds?" "That ain't important, woman. Now, do you or do you no have anything to clean a wound?" She quiets herself thinking, then dashes into the back room and Jeffrey shouts, "Just grab whatever!" She retrieves 2 old dresses and re-enters the room holding them up. "Will these do?" Jeffrey snatches them from her hand and heads out the door. "Perfect! Thank you, love." Again she asks, "Whose wounds?" "An Injun!" he blurts, dashing out the door. Astonished, she breathes, "An Injun?" From the yard, her husband hollers, "And bring the water as soon as you're able." Meanwhile, in the barn, Doc is still getting over the shock of his patient being an Indian, a first for him. Nevertheless, he closely examines his patient. Hands and eyes probing, he asks, "Where did you find him?" "William spotted him face down in the snow about a mile or so up the road," Beebe explains. "William, help me remove this robe," Doc says. William moves to the other side of the table and helps remove the young warrior's wool robe. Peeling it away, Doc breathes, "Good Lord!" Beneath the robe is a fringed buckskin tunic, saturated with blood, making it impossible to view the wound. William says, "I didn't see any other wounds." "Nor did I. We need to remove his buckskins. I need to see what I'm dealing with." Struggling to remove the bloody garment, William pulls Senior's blade and cuts it away from the wound. "There! That should do it, Doc." "That's fine, lad. Let me have a closer look." The 2 men peel the garment away from his skin, fully exposing the one and only wound they can find. The young warrior groans. Carrying the tattered dresses, Jeffrey bursts through the barn door, blurting, "Doc, will these do?" "That'll be fine, Jeffrey, thank you. Now, where's that hot water I asked for?" "It'll be along shortly, Doc." While Doc tends to his patient, Beebe breaches another topic, asking William, "Did you ever find out what happened to him? Did he say anything? Anything at all?" Concern in his eyes, he whispers, "One word." Beebe gives him a squint-eyed glare. "And?" "Haudenosaunee," Beebe gasps. "Hauden what?" "Haudenosaunee, a rival Iroquois tribe they're at war with." "At war? Who's at war?" Doc barks. "I recognize him from the encounter on the day we met. Remember the 7 Shawnee and the guy with the knife I told you about?" Beebe's eyes narrow. "He's one of the warriors I told you about," William says, staring at the young Shawnee. "You mean that were real? I thought you were blowing smoke. Holy shit! It really happened?" William continues. "That day Skiagunsta told me about their war with the Haudenosaunee. I'd be willing to bet they're the ones responsible for this." Beebe gasps. "Holy Christ! I hope his people didn't think us responsible for this." "It ain't the Shawnee I'm worried about. It's the Haudenosaunee.
And for all we ken, they're still out there.
That's precisely what I'm thinking. And if they are, they'll be looking for him.
We'd be wise to gather everyone in the barn and ready ourselves, just in case, Bebe suggests.
Overhearing them as she enters with the hot water, Margaret asks,
In case of what? Bebe barks. In case they come back.
They? They who? The ones what did this, William answers.
Bebe turns to her husband. Geoffrey, bring the children to the barn with your weapons and powder.
Geoffrey nods, and he and Margaret hustle into the cabin.
You get the little ones, and I'll get the weapons.
Bebe spots his daughter standing near the barn door.
Flora, go with the Deans and help lend a hand. Berta, William, let's stack this lumber from the benches and tables around the furnace to provide some extra protection for the children. Berta, when the children arrive, make them comfy behind these stacks.
Berta nods. Turning to Bebe, William says, Geoffrey can stand guard here and help Doc if he needs it, but I think we would best serve our defenses outside the bush.
Bebe nods. Aye, I'd rather take the fight to 'em out there than in here with the children.
With a discerning glare, he says, Absolutely. As they are heading out, Flora appears with William's bearskin.
I wiped off the blood best I could. You be careful out there, and take care of me, da.
Staring her down with a confident eye, he shimmies into his coat and says, Don't worry, I will. Bebe interrupts them.
Flora, if when you're done helping the Deans, gather the horses and bring 'em into the barn. William, lend a hand unhitching these mules and we'll do the same.
William nods. Good idea. While Flora rounds up their horses and the paint, William and Bebe unhitch the mules and hurry them into a stall. Returning from the cabin, Geoffrey places a keg of powder on the ground next to 3 stacked muskets. Following closely behind is Margaret and Mrs. McHaney with their 6 children. On Berta's instruction, the children huddle behind the lumber near the furnace. Geoffrey is standing guard just inside the barn door with musket in hand. Meanwhile, Doc is feverishly working to stabilize the wounded Shawnee's shoulder with help from Flora.
I canna see a thing with all this blood. Flora, pour some whiskey on the wound and wash it away so I can see clear to remove this bloody ball.
Grabbing the jug, she pours the precious liquid onto the wound.
How's that, Doc?
'Tis fine, lassie. Well done. Now, do me a kindness and hold that lantern up so I can see better.
Picking up the lantern, she holds it steady, illuminating the wound.
Right there?
That's perfect, lass. Almost there.
Moments later,
got it.
Doc carefully slips the musket ball from his patient's shoulder blade. Examining it, he says,
I canna say for certain, but this looks to be French.
Doc sets the bloody ball aside and turns his attention back to the wound, bandaging it with supplies from his medical bag and Mrs. Dean's tattered dresses. Dean Family Farm, just outside of Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia Colony, the wee hours of the morn, New Year's Day, Sunday, January 1st, 1730. About 50 yards behind the barn, William and Bebe take a knee in a tight grove of trees, concealing themselves while they hedge their plan. Bebe with his musket, and William armed to the teeth with Martha, a flintlock pistol, a hatchet, and Senior's blade. William whispers, I say we split up and walk through the trees along the farm's perimeter. That'll provide us some cover while we patrol the area. Remember, move slow and quiet, and stay out of sight.
Aye, we need to see if anyone's out there.
True, but don't be so quick to shoot. We've no idea what we're up against. If and we can, our best bet is to stay low and assess the situation without shooting.
Bebe nods. Aye, so if I hear shots, I'll know all hell's broke loose.
Exactly, but if all's quiet, we'll meet up on the other side of the property at the outcropping of rocks near the creek where Geoffrey took us fishing.
Aye, I'll meet you there.
Before heading out, Bebe grabs William by his bearskin and says,
Above all, protect the children.
William places a hand over his. no matter the cost. Beebe nods and winks. Then William dashes into the snowy darkness. I'll meet you at the creek. Stealthily, the two Virginians make their way through the forest at the edge of the tree line bordering the farm. Each of them patrolling opposite sides of the property, they move parallel to each other, scanning the area as they slowly make their way through the fluffy snow. Methodically, they move like ninjas from one tree or shrub to the next, silently weaving through the forest. Stopping momentarily at each position, they look and listen before maneuvering through the moonlight to their next spot. William reaches the creek an hour later, but there is no one in sight. Seeing he is alone, he hunkers down inside the snow-covered concealment of some large holly bushes nestled between two basswood trees. The trees stand side by side just a few yards from the outcropping where they agreed to meet. With the ominous presence of his bearskin, whose generous size and dark fur stand out in the snow like a cow pie on a kitchen table, the offering of snow-covered bushes is a welcoming blessing. Despite the fact most are hibernating, the last thing he needs is to be mistaken for an actual bear. Kneeling inside the hollies, he wraps his scarf around his face to conceal his steaming breath. The last of the brotherhood of warrior hunters, William patiently waits, silently watching for his partner to arrive. Several eerily silent minutes pass when William hears something. Unsure from what direction it came, he closes his eyes, focusing on his hearing. Another crunch. This one in the snow to his right, the complete opposite direction from where Beebe should be emerging. Martha at the ready, he slowly turns, careful not to reveal his presence. At first, he sees nothing, but then he spots someone slipping through the trees in the distance. Whoever they are, they were heading right towards him before slyly ducking for cover behind a tree. He has yet to make out if it is Beebe or an intruder. Remaining disciplined, he patiently watches, his cold, numb finger resting on the trigger guard. Eyes adjusted to the darkness, he glares at the tree, silent as a statue, waiting for the shadowy figure to emerge. As a silhouette slowly steps from its concealment into the moonlight, William immediately recognizes him, for every line on his face had been forever chiseled into his memory at knife point. It is Skiagunsta, the man he told the teen he is friends with. He will soon find out if that is true. For now, however, he stays still, fearful startling him could get the both of them killed. And still, there is no sign of Beebe. A shot rings out to his far right. Crouched, he spins around and spots two Haudenosaunee warriors running from the trees, charging Skiagunsta's position. He turns back to the Shawnee warrior, only to find he has vanished. His eyes frantically scan the area, but he is nowhere in sight. Where did he go? Has he been shot? William cannot be certain. From out of nowhere, Skiagunsta reappears. Popping out from behind a tree with his barrel aimed and on target, he pulls the trigger. William's eyes shift back to the enemy just in time to watch one of them fall, but the other keeps charging. Leaping from his concealment, he brings Martha to bear on the charging warrior. Peering down the length of Martha's barrel, he is about to pull the trigger when a hatchet comes out of nowhere, smacking his target in the forehead, splitting his skull. As he falls to the snowy ground, Skiagunsta runs up. Standing over him, he looks around, then steps on the enemy's shoulder and yanks his hatchet from his lifeless body. Wiping the blade on his enemy's shirt, the Shawnee warrior looks up, spotting William in the distance. To the Irishman's shock, Skiagunsta stands and charges him. Immediately lowering his barrel, William throws a hand in the air and shouts, "Skiagunsta, 'tis me!" His words fall on deaf ears as the warrior closes the gap. Hard pressed, he yells again, "Skiagunsta!" But still he comes. Skiagunsta is within 40 feet and closing when another Haudenosaunee charges out from the trees behind him. Quick as lightning, William raises Martha's cold steel barrel and takes aim. Skiagunsta's eyes widen, and he dives face first into the snow. In a burst of sparks and smoke, Martha erupts, casting white smoke in every direction as it hurls its lead ball downrange. Looking past the white cloud, he watches the Haudenosaunee fall as Skiagunsta's head pops out of the snow. He is shaking the frozen flakes from his head when from behind him he hears an anguishing groan. Flipping to his backside, he is stunned to find his Haudenosaunee foe collapsing to his knees before falling forward in a heap. Rolling to his side, he looks back at William to find him rapidly reloading. Eyes bulging and lungs heaving, he roars, "William!" William finishes loading and looks up. The Shawnee warrior is on one knee now, pointing and waving his arms, shouting, "William! Behind you!" The Irishman spins around just in time to block an enemy tomahawk with Martha's barrel, the warrior's momentum sending them tumbling to the snowy ground. As William and his assailant grapple, Skiagunsta rushes to the scene. Still tussling, William pulls his knife and forces his assailant onto his back before burying Senior's blade deep in his gut. Twisting it as he drives it home, he whispers, "You're no tougher than a bear." Eyes wide and distant, the warrior lets out his last breath and goes limp. William pushes off of him, wiping his blade on the warrior's chest. Breathing heavily, he looks up to find Beebe standing over him, aiming his musket. In his peripheral, William spies Skiagunsta rushing towards them. With but a second to act, he lunges forward, tackling the old Scot, his musket firing aimlessly into the air as they tumble to the snowy ground. From his back, Beebe groans, "Bloody hell! What'd you go and do that for?" Saying nothing, William looks at him, then turns his eyes upward. When Beebe catches his meaning, he looks around to find Shawnee warriors surrounding them. Eyeballing the warriors, the two frontiersmen roll to their arses to find Skiagunsta standing behind them. At a loss for words, the Scotsman catches his breath while contemplating his fate. To his shock, he watches as the imposing warrior extends a hand to his Irish farmhand.
"William, it has been more than a season since last we met. It is good to see you alive."
William smiles and takes his hand. Standing, he says, "I'm alive because a friend once told me to ride like the wind to where the sun sleeps." Skiagunsta grins.
"You friend much wise."
William chuckles. "Much wise indeed." As another warrior helps the old Scot to his feet, Beebe mumbles,
"I didn't see that coming. Thank you, lad."
The warrior gives the furry Scot a funny look, bringing William and Skiagunsta to laugh. With a swipe of his beard, he adds,
"So, 'tis true what you said."
William nods and grins. With the eyes of a father, Beebe says,
"I'm sorry I ever doubted you, lad, but you have me word. I'll no make that mistake again."
William extends a hand and they shake. Then William turns to his Shawnee friend. "Beebe, allow me to introduce Skiagunsta, great and honorable warrior of the Shawnee tribe." Then in his best Algonquin he says, "Skiagunsta, this is me friend, Bruce Bonner." The two men exchange a glance, then shake hands wrist to elbow, and Beebe says,
"William here says good things about you, Skiagunsta. 'Tis a pleasure to finally meet you. Oh, and just call me Beebe."
Skiagunsta gives William a questioning look out the corner of his eyes, and he translates Beebe's words. Skiagunsta nods and laughs.
"Baby, good."
Then in his native tongue he says,
"Forgive intrusion. We search for one of our people. The tracks led us here."
Replying in Algonquin, William says, "You are a great tracker, my friend. We found your man about a mile from here. He is wounded, but our doctor is caring for him. Come, I'll bring you to him." Skiagunsta nods, and William continues, "But first, we need to make sure there are no more Haudenosaunee."
"And do something about these,"
Beebe says, pointing at the four bodies.
"They not go anywhere."
Skiagunsta smirks.
"What'd he say, lad?"
"He said they ain't going anywhere." Beebe nods, smiling at Skiagunsta. "True enough." In the warrior's native tongue, William points and says, "Me and Beebe will patrol this side of the farm. You and your men patrol that side, and we'll meet up at the barn."
"Meet at barn. Good,"
Skiagunsta says with a nod. First, we need get horses, then meet. William nods, and the imposing band of Shawnee warriors disappears into the trees. In his hunting voice, William says, Let's go, Beebe, and if'n you can, try walking in me tracks. Aye, 'tis harder to track us that way. As dawn begins to break, the soft glow of the god rays peek gently through the trees, reflecting off the snow-covered landscape. Jeffrey is standing guard just inside the barn door with the door ajar. Those shots have me worried, Doc replies. Guns always worry me, Jeffrey, but our job is to protect the women and children, no matter the cost. As for William and Beebe, all we can do is trust they can care for themselves. So, for now, keep a sharp eye while I tend to me patient. Then he whispers to Flora with a comforting wink. Don't worry, lass. They'll be fine. Flora, who is assisting, smiles, then turns to her mother, who is watching over the children. Locking eyes, they exchange a reassuring smile. Outside, William and Beebe finally make it back. Coming up from behind the barn where they started, they are completely undetected. So, when William knocks on the door, Jeffrey nearly jumps from his boots. "'Tis William!" a voice calls through the door. Opening the door, hand over chest, Jeffrey breathes. "For the love of Christ! You scared the shite out of me! Where's Beebe?" "Right here, brave one," Beebe jabs as he comes into view. He and Jeffrey exchange a stank eye. "How's our Shawnee friend?" asks William. "You'll have to ask Doc." As they enter, William looks to his right and sees the women and children nestled together. Beebe spots his wife and rushes to embrace her. To William's left, he spies the wounded teen laying on a table covered with blankets and resting. Doc and Flora are standing by his side. "How's he doing, Doc?" A moan is heard. Doc looks down at him and says, "He's regaining consciousness. Ask him yourself." William steps to the table and in the warrior's native tongue says, "It's okay. You're among friends." The warrior attempts to roll to his side, but Doc places a hand on his shoulder for him to remain still. "This is our Doc. He has mended your wound, but you must rest for now," William explains. The warrior mutters, "Where I am." "What's that?" Doc asks. He wants to know where he is. Then to the wounded warrior he says, "Old Town, near Redbud Creek. We found you in the snow about a mile from here. You've been shot." The warrior lets his head fall back on the table, and he exhales, grumbling and wincing. Lifting a jug, Doc says, "Give him a shot, lad. I think he could use it." William takes it and holds it up for the warrior to see and says, "It'll ease your pain." The warrior nods and rolls to his side for William to pour a portion into his mouth. The youngster takes it in, coughing a little as he does. "Thank you," the young warrior murmurs. Then, "I must go to my people. They will think me dead." Just then, Indians come into view from around the far side of the cabin on horseback. Jeffrey calls frantically from the door. "We've a problem." "What is it?" Beebe barks. The fear in his voice vividly clear, Jeffrey blurts, "Injuns! Lots of 'em!" "Hold fast, Jeffrey! They're Shawnee!" William says, rushing to the door. Still clad in his bearskin and beaver cap, he rushes outside and calls, "Skiagunsta!" "William!" the warrior calls from atop his paint. As he rides up, William reaches out and strokes his horse's chin. "She's a beauty!" "Yes, but much better hunt on foot," he says, smiling. "Right you are, friend." Skiagunsta cuts to the chase. "Where, my man?" William pats the horse and says, "Follow me." Rather than dismount and follow, Skiagunsta remains on his paint and calls out, "Sinawa!" William stops and waits. Faintly the teen calls, "I am here." Promptly sliding from his mount, Skiagunsta orders two warriors to escort him. Leaving their horses with the others, they approach William like a trusted friend. Greeting him with a warrior's grin, he confidently reaches out, taking the Irishman's right arm in a firm, two-handed embrace and asks,
You good?
With a huge smile, William nods.
Aye, thanks to you. That's twice now you've saved me arse.
Patting the Irishman's forearm, Skiagunsta pulls him in real close and whispers,
Now I know why they call you Makwa. Him spirit live inside you. This I see. Know this, what you did today. We will not forget.
And I've no forgotten what you done for me.
They exchange a smile, then head into the barn. As they approach the massive structure, a warrior appears on horseback, cutting off their path. With a few quick hand gestures, he and Skiagunsta exchange nods, and he rides away. Skiagunsta turns to William.
The bodies are no more.
William looks at him with a raised brow, and with a firm wave and shake of his head, the warrior says,
No more.
William nods.
Thank you, friend. I'm no sure how we'd explain 'em to the neighbors.
Patting him on the back like an old friend, the warrior replies,
You welcome.
By this time, the slumbering women and children have awakened. Uncertain of what is going on outside, they remain fearfully huddled together, wrapped in blankets by the furnace. With a hand gesture, Geoffrey opens the door, welcoming William and his guests inside. Doc is standing at his patient's side when William, Skiagunsta, and his warrior escorts approach the table. Relieved, the Shawnee leader sighs.
Sanawa!
Elated, the teen warrior breathes.
Skiagunsta! I am grateful you found me.
William hands Skiagunsta the bloody musket ball.
Our healer pulled this from his back.
Skiagunsta rolls it in the palm of his hand, examining it. Looking up, he locks eyes with William.
We found your man in the wee hours of the morn, face down in the snow about a mile from here. So, we brought him here to be cared for.
Skiagunsta turns his eyes to Sanawa, who proceeds to share his story, apologizing for allowing himself to be shot by the enemy. Then, referring to him as Makwa, he explains how William and his people saved him from the death that awaited him in the snowy field, going on to say how they have shown him much compassion while caring for his wound. Hearing his story, Skiagunsta nods at William and his people with appreciation. In a slow and sincere tone, the Shawnee leader offers his best English.
William and William friends, thank you.
Placing a hand upon William's shoulder, he speaks in his native tongue.
William, Makwa, Shawnee friend, Shawnee brother.
William translates, then he gestures to Doc McCaney and says,
This is our healer, Dr. Todd McCaney. He's the man what cared for Sanawa.
Skiagunsta extends his hands, placing them on Doc's shoulders. Patting him twice with both hands, he says,
Makani, Shawnee friend, we grateful for you medicine.
William translates, and Doc nods with relief and appreciation. Then, like any self-respecting Irishman, he offers the man a snort of McGregor's brew. The warrior stares at the jug. Taking it, he smells it. Sucking a huge whiff into his lungs, his eyebrows raise, and with a shrug, he takes a manly swig, half choking on it as it goes down. With a deep breath and an expression of approval, he passes the jug to one of his escorts.
Good medicine, Makani,
Skiagunsta says, wiping his smiling lips. William translates every word, and everyone breaks into a laugh, warriors and frontiersmen alike.
Aye, the best in fact,
Doc replies. William translates again, and they share another laugh. The two escorts agree, throwing back healthy swigs of their own. Meanwhile, William is taking Skiagunsta around the room, introducing him to all in attendance. The proud and grateful warrior is gracious, noble, and appreciative for the kindness they have shown his Shawnee brother. But the sun is awakening in the east, and the Shawnee are still at war. Skiagunsta knows his enemy is out there somewhere. So, With heartfelt thanks, he orders his escorts to build a travois to transport Sanawa. Then he turns to the old-towners and announces their departure. While the travois is being constructed, Sanawa carefully puts on his tunic and robe with help from Doc. Meanwhile, Bibi retrieves Sanawa's paint from the stall and walks it outside. With help from William and Doc, Sanawa slowly and gingerly walks outside and climbs aboard the travois strapped to the back of his paint. As he, Skiagunsta, and their people ready themselves for departure, the grateful Sanawa musters just enough strength to sit up and address his hosts. In the cold barnyard, the old-towners listen wide-eyed. William translates for him. Hand over heart, the grateful warrior says,
I am Sanawa, warrior of the Shawnee. I thank you all. Makwa, Bebe, Makhane. My life is you life. You, Shawnee friends, Shawnee brothers, my brothers.
When finished, Skiagunsta speaks again in broken English from atop his majestic paint.
William, Makwa, you fight with courage and honor. We will not forget.
Doc leans over, whispering in William's ear.
Makwa.
Staring forward, William says,
It means bear.
Doc nods. Oh. Continuing, Skiagunsta pounds a fist upon his chest.
Makhane, medicine, much good.
Doc acknowledges him, pounding a fist softly upon his own chest. Skiagunsta nods, and he and his Shawnee brothers turn their horses to the northwest and tantevy away through the fluffy powder. The old-towners are moved by their sincere, heartfelt words. While the men stand watching in awe, their women at their side, some crying, they are all in a state of what the hell just happened? Total disbelief, despite having witnessed it with their own eyes. Breathing sighs of relief, they watch as the Shawnee disappear into the forest. Doc walks over and places a hand on William's shoulder.
I'll never doubt you again, lad.
William looks at him and grins. As they wave goodbye, he realizes this is not a mere ringing in of a new year and decade. No, this day marked far more than that. This day marked the beginning of a new era.